Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Padilla. I put together a lesson plan which is greatly about the judicial branch system. Now I want to become a history teacher, so I've always been a fan of the judicial system. This is the court system, and the U.S. is given the power of judicial review, and I want my students to explore the power of judicial review using various cases and articles and the Constitution itself for evidence. I want them to annotate, to do multiple read-throughs, things like pair share, collaborative reading, tag, title, author, genre. These are just some of the basic reading strategies used. Now the basis of my lesson plan is, again, as I mentioned, summarizing the landmark Supreme Court cases, interpreting the Constitution and its amendments. So students will do close read-throughs. They'll write arguments to support their claims. They'll draw evidence from the text and construct viable arguments and critique reasoning of others. When given an article to read, students will annotate, and the students will provide well-supported claims based on the readings. I really value this strategy, and I think students need to know their sources and where to find, what's the difference between a primary source, a secondary source. So again, this all happens through annotations. You want to support your readings. Basic formative assessment strategies would be something like summarizing lecture notes orally or in writing. I like to do a little bit of both, so I can get a little bit of Q&A from the students. I can hear what they think on paper as well as out loud. Students will annotate the text in groups and independently, so I also like it when they discuss with others some of the same questions that I direct to individuals. The students will also produce written or oral summaries of all the text. So again, I'm a big fan of summaries, and even though I am a history teacher, I do like a lot of the English standards. They tend to roll over in the cross curriculum, especially in this Common Core. We deal closely a lot with history and the English department. My two primary literary strategies that I chose were shared reading and collaborative reading. The reason why I chose those is because, again, oftentimes students do not like to read on their own. So oftentimes if we do it as a class, I figured out that I tend to get more participation and more discussion. Collaborative reading is just one effective strategy. It's not necessarily the go-to, but it's just one that I've tried and that I've seen work as a sub as well as being a history teacher. What we do is we divide the reading into chunks. So I would provide them their articles, and I would have them chunk it and give them guiding questions for each of those chunks. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, they tag it with a title, an author, a genre. They number each paragraph, they number the chunks, and then students are first skimming and looking for unfamiliar vocabulary. Oftentimes we get caught up in the political jargon or some of those big words, and they tend to scare us, so we don't always exactly read. So as students become more familiar with questioning the text, I can direct them to create their own questions, as well as predetermine some questions for them. So I do a little bit of both. The sources that I used was the Constitution itself, just because, again, we are studying the Constitution and government, so the best thing to do is use the actual Constitution itself. I also use Nuzella's articles. I'm a big fan of those because you can reduce the reading size, and you could also adjust it to various reading levels. So again, you can make the reading a little bit harder or a little bit easier. So again, thank you for taking your time to watch this video. I just gave you a brief explanation of what I did in my content area. I took the steps we used in class and I went one step further and I adjusted it to my own history content area. Thanks for watching.